Today on the Bowser Journal, we're doing some drip irrigation, so come with us. This weekend we're adding to our irrigation system. We already have some irrigation installed previously, but we're putting in something new, drip irrigation. So when it comes to watering your plants, that's critical. You can't forget to do that. And especially in times of drought or low rain, like we're having right now, you need to be watering daily. And that can be a pain in the neck, and sometimes you can forget, especially if you're a busy working professional. So you want to automate that process as much as possible. Now you can do that with sprinklers on timers. That works. The only problem is a lot of that water doesn't get put at the roots where it's going to be most beneficial. So we're doing drip irrigation. So some of the things we're going to be installing today, including some poly pipe, right? We're going to be putting in some drip irrigation. Now the difference between this and the poly pipe is this actually has a hole in it, and when you put water inside of this, it drips right at the roots. So the water goes right where you want it. Very little evaporation. We're going to be using some 90 fittings, some T fittings, some on-off switches, which I don't happen to have here, and also some kits to fold the pipe over to close it off, some end kits. So I want to give you a tip about poly pipe, because it comes to you coiled like this. Now this is a 100-foot coil, and it's 1/2-inch tubing. You can also buy it in 50 feet. Two tips actually I want to give. One just kind of came to mind, and my wife will appreciate this one. Whenever you buy this stuff or anything from the hardware store, always buy extra. I'm looking over there because she's standing there smiling at me like, yeah, I hear you. Always buy extra. Now we probably only needed maybe 30 feet for today's install, but I bought a 100-foot roll because it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So what I don't use, I'll just coil up, put in the shed, save for projects down the road. And another third tip, 3 tips actually. Tip number 2. The little pieces, leftover pieces, never throw them away. Don't leave them laying around the yard, but don't throw them away, because when we do the drip irrigation and we're doing these little splice and stuff, they're perfect for those pieces. They came in, you know, if I'd have thrown them away, I'd be chopping off of this. And then the third tip is when you go to install this drip tubing, right, you're going to be using what they call landscaping staples, and you're going to be holding this down. But this thing it's in a real tight coil. And when you go to put it in the garden, it's going to want to coil on you because it's got memory. About 20 minutes to an hour before you actually start putting this in, take it out to somewhere in the yard, uncoil it, let it sit in the sun for, it doesn't take very long, it depends on where you are in the country. Here in Florida, 10 minutes. If you're up in Vermont in the wintertime, it might take a little longer. So what happens is, because it's black, the sun heats it up and it gets rid of that memory, makes it real easy to put it in without all that memory and when the coil ever pulling the staples out. So enough jabberjawing, let's get to work. So like I said, we're taking this out into the yard. Now the good thing is I've already got some drip irrigation sitting out there in the sun to help get rid of the memory, so I'm going to lay this right next to that. Another tip, when you lay this out, you're going to need to put something heavy on the end of this. When I say heavy, I don't mean, you know, an 80-pound bag of concrete mix. You know, a small piece of board, something to keep it from cooling back up on you. You'll see when I go out there and do this. So let's lay this out so we can start getting rid of the memory while we go over to the beds and finish doing the setup. So the trunk tubing, which is basically just a 1/2-inch poly tube that goes back to the feed source, is already buried in the ground because we actually, these 4 beds replaced previous beds that we had. So it's already here. We actually just cut it off, and now I got to splice in new stuff. Poly tube is extremely easy to work with. You don't have to be a rocket scientist or a water engineer or anything like that. It's pretty simple. I got a short piece of aqua tubing, and this process is the same whether you're doing a 90-degree fitting, a on-off thing, or T. They all go on the fittings the exact same way. So what you're going to do is you're going to take that tubing, just push it in the front of that until it doesn't go in anymore, and then you basically just twist it and it locks into place. This stuff's pretty stout. We the stuff that's in the ground right now has been in the ground for probably a year and a half. But I've got poly tubing going all the way down the aquaponics that's been up and operating for 3.5 years. So the other thing you really got to watch out for is get in areas of the country where you do have frost, get it below that frost line. And also you got to worry about if you have moles or stuff, because they will chew through it. I have found where you have poly tube exposed during the summer months, if you're in like a drought condition, squirrels and stuff will chew through this to get to the water. So you got to be careful with that. So this already has an on-off valve on it. We put this here and I had it shut off so the stuff upstream from this could be water. If I didn't have this closed or shut off somehow, the water would come out here, not in the garden. So it's already set up. So the first thing I have to do is put a T on it, because I want one feed to come up into this garden and the other one to go out and around and go up to the next garden. So luckily I already have a short piece on this, so let's put that on. Again, tighten it down to lock it in place. Okay. So now I need a short piece to come over and a 90 to come up. And if you hear anything in the background, that's just Barbie working on the garden, cleaning up stuff. So it's a farm day. So let's put the short piece on to get it over to the 90. Again, squeeze it shut. Now we'll install this piece once that piece that I just laid out a few minutes ago to uncoil to get rid of the memory. Once it's ready to go, I'll start cutting pieces and doing that. So now what I need is a 90. A 90 to come up. Another short piece left over from another job, now from a previous one. So when you're using used stuff, always just kind of feel and look along the side of it to make sure there's no holes in it, or where you made for previous drippers and stuff. And this one seems to be good all the way up to here. All right, so I just need a short piece to come up. So I'm going to cut it there. Now when you cut this, you need a knife, which I had a knife, and evidently I set it down. I already had the knife in my pocket, so let's remeasure this. I could go from this 90 up till I clear this. Now this stuff cuts pretty easy. I'm just using my pocket knife. It has a serrated edge. The key is you want to make sure that you get as smooth cut as possible. That way you don't have any rough edges. Again, just stick it in. Once it's in, twist the lock, bring it up. Now I need another 90 to go across. Now I want this 90 to sit roughly about here. This tubing comes about this far into it, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this tubing down a little bit more to get it to the height that I want. Tighten it. Now I could probably use another short piece because I'm going to have 3 drip runs going down this. So I'm going to come out, go to a T, come across to another T, and then let that sweep around and go out. This bed is now ready for the 3 drip tubes to be installed and attached to this black 1/2-inch poly tube. So to measure the poly tubing, it's pretty simple. I want to go the entire length of the bed plus a little extra for the close clip. So I'm just going to lay it right in the bed and just work my way down. I'll come back and put landscaping staples in a second. Once I have my measurement, I'm going to cut 2 more exactly like this. When you're putting in the irrigation system, pro tip number 1, not number pro, but experience tip number 1. put the tubes in before you plant. So what I had to do with this tubing was actually, I had to, especially the beans, because they grew over and are climbing up the thing, so I had to make sure the tube went underneath all those plants. Now the good news is this poly tubing, or this drip irrigation tubing, has been sitting out in the yard. I set it out to get rid of the memory, and we were going to do this last weekend, so it's been sitting out for 7 days, so it's nice and pliable and nice and warm. So it's real easy to get underneath there. But if it had memory to it or had not been warmed up yet, that could have broken a plant, and then you're mad about killing one of your plants, or your spouse is mad at you for killing a plant. So let's show how to actually connect the drip irrigation tube to the tee. It's the same process, but there's something you got to be aware of. So let's look at this. So the drip irrigation tubing is the same size and thickness as your poly tubing, but I think it's a little bit different plastic because it's a little bit more rigid. So that makes it putting in here a little bit harder. So what you really got to do is when you put it on, with the poly tubing it kind of slides in pretty easily. This one, you want to force it in until you feel it bottom out. Once it bottoms out, then turn your nut and it'll lock onto it. Same way as the poly tubing. But like I said, you got to push on a little bit hard, so don't be afraid of that. And then do your final setting. Making sure that you don't kill any of your wife's plants. Okay. So the poly tubing goes a little bit past the bed. Make sure that my last hole in the drip irrigation is not where I'm going to be doing my fold at. Now if I were to turn it on right now, all the water would come out of this end. So we got to stop that. So what you're going to do is you can take these little clips that you can buy from the big box where you can slide one end on. You're going to fold this back, put it through the hole, boom. Now the advantage of using these over tie wraps is tie wraps after time being exposed to UV will get brittle and break. Also you want to make sure that where your last drip tube, your drip hole is not right up against this, because this won't slide up on, because you can see it actually gets a little bit thicker right through here where they reinforce where that hole is. The last step is to put in the landscaping pins. These are just pins that are just going to hold that hose down, keep it from curling back up on you. This bed is now complete. 3 more to go. Is just going to be laying on the ground. I'm going to put it through a short piece of PVC in case somebody happens to step on it. I know Barbie and I won't, but the grand boys are here and we have guests quite often. One way you can check a piece of tubing if you're not sure if it's good or not, close off one end, blow on the other end. If the air doesn't escape, good to go. Always double check your design to make sure you get the right amount of components. I am short on tees, so I'm just going to go ahead and lay everything out and get them in place, so all I got to do is come back later and just put in the tees and this project will be done.